Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Hugh Freeze, the Auburn Tigers, not only one of the most aggressive teams in the transfer portal that we saw. I mean, you're talking about pretty much every big name that we saw come into the transfer portal, Auburn seemed to be going after. I think it's awfully hard to argue that they haven't been one of the more successful teams either. When you look at this Auburn program and what they brought in and what they held on to, this is a team that simply got better heading into the 2025 year. Want to get into the midterm transfer portal grade for this Auburn program and where I want to start. And it's not always flashy to start here, but I think it's becoming more and more important in this modern era of college football. Holding on to your roster, especially when you have a lot of young talent that you want to hold on to, is really important. Auburn did a really nice job of that. I mean, the only name that hit the transfer portal that I think Auburn fans, it really stung, was quarterback Walker White. And it also kind of made sense that he decided to hit the transfer portal. I mean, you look at Jackson Arnold coming in. I think Hugh Freeze and that staff have a lot of confidence about what they can do with Jackson in a new offense, surrounded by pieces that might allow him to have success, which he clearly didn't have at Oklahoma. And then Deuce Knight. Deuce Knight was a quarterback that I think when Auburn was really going after him was kind of a big time traits, but probably needs a year or two kind of guy. I think that narrative's kind of changing around Deuce Knight. I mean, as the months and weeks go on and as he enrolls into Auburn, it went from, all right, big time traits, probably needs a year or two, to this guy's going to be hard to keep off the football field in the next couple of years. And so you look at Walker White leaving, which again stings because he's a very talented quarterback that if he puts it together is going to be really good at the collegiate level. You kind of get the sense that the quarterback room is just fine. I mean, you got two former 5-star quarterbacks in Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight kind of leading up this quarterback room. You also bring the guy like Ashton Daniels. To me, yes, the departure of Walker White stung, but it also kind of makes sense. And I think if you're an Auburn fan, you're looking at the quarterback room and saying, I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's hard for me to see quarterback being a massive problem in the 2025 season. And I will say this about Jackson Arnold. I give Hugh Freeze and the staff all the credit in the world. I know he's a polarizing transfer portal addition for a lot of Auburn fans because of the roller coaster it's been for him at Oklahoma. There are so many head coaches and programs that decide to play it safe at the quarterback spot. Miller Moss would have been hey, we're going to play it safe kind of guy. Miller Moss comes to Auburn. You're winning 8 football games. I feel pretty confident saying that, but you're probably not winning 10, 11. Jackson Arnold might be give you a little bit more variance, so to speak, but he's one of those quarterbacks that, unlike Miller Moss, I think can elevate this team to a new level. Hugh Freeze took a risk, but I think it's a risk that has a lot of upside. And I think so many coaches are concerned with holding on to their jobs and just being solid so they don't get fired. They forget that you also want to try to compete at the highest level. Hugh Freeze, you make no mistake about it, Hugh Freeze wants to compete for SEC championships and national championships. Jackson Arnold, to me, offered some of the higher upside that you saw in this quarterback cycle in the transfer portal. And so I'm a bigger fan of it than most. Starting with the midterm grade for player retention, I'll probably give it a B+. Walker White, even Keontae Scott's a guy that you look at and say, you've played good football in the past, but in 2024, it wasn't all that good. And then you look at the young talent in the secondary room, so you feel pretty good about what that is. You held on to a guy like Amaris Williams, who I think was really important to hold on to. It's hard to say Auburn did a bad job with player retention. And outside of Walker White, you feel pretty good about what Auburn was able to keep on their roster in terms of the young talent that was coming into the program. And so for player retention, I'll give it a B+. I want to move on to the additions they made in the transfer portal before we get into it. As always, to the Auburn fans, we've broken down pretty much every single commitment that this Auburn program's made and the amount of support y'all continue to show to the boys throughout the last couple of weeks has been amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into the additions that this Auburn team made. And starting at the quarterback spot, again, outside of John Mateer and probably Darian Mensah at Tulane, was there a quarterback in the portal that offered the upside that Jackson Arnold offered? And I know I'm a personal, Jackson Arnold's been kind of my guy ever since he was coming out of high school. So I probably like him more than most, but I look at it and say, I'm not going to knock the quarterback position because I look at it and say, all right, Jackson Arnold, Deuce Knight. Again, to me, I look at it and say it's hard to see Auburn not having good quarterback play in 2025 and in 2026. I think Hugh Freeze has set this program up for, the first 2 years of Hugh Freeze with quarterbacks. It was kind of, it put a ceiling on where Auburn could go. Like, you knew Peyton Thorne could be solid, but you knew you kind of couldn't really compete for an SEC championship with him. The combination of Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight, you feel like if one or both hit, it's hard to see this team not competing for SEC championships for the next couple of years with those quarterbacks in the room. And so I like what Auburn did at the quarterback spot. They took a big swing, arguably a risky swing, but I think not enough coaches do that. And I think Hugh Freeze has aspirations to win at the highest level. Wide receiver position, this is what I love is, hey, we held on to all the wide receivers we wanted to hold on to, and then we went out and got probably the best wide receiver in the transfer portal in Eric Singleton. And then Horatio Fields, a guy that I think is not getting enough credit for how good he can be for Auburn. I mean, Eric Singleton, why Eric Singleton, I think, was the guy for Auburn. There were a lot of good quarterbacks in the portal. Why was Eric Singleton the guy that Auburn decided to go after really hard? To me, it's because he's so easy to get involved. I mean, it's a talented wide receiver. And Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, Perry Thompson, Bryce Kane. You wanted to land a wide receiver that it was going to be easy to get involved in the wide receiver room. And because of Eric Singleton's diversity, and he can do so many different things, whether it's with the football in his hands, whether it's working vertically down the field, to me, the addition of Eric Singleton made so much sense. Then you look at the offensive line, which at least to me was the biggest problem for Auburn, or not problem, but question mark for Auburn heading into 2025. You bring in a bona fide left tackle in Xavier Chaplin. There weren't many better tackles in the portal than Xavier Chaplin. Auburn lands him. You land Dylan, or you don't land, but you keep Dylan Wade on your roster heading into 2025. Then you got Connor Lew at center. Apparently, Xavier Miller might have another year of eligibility with that JUCO ruling. And then you bring in Mason Murphy, who I think Mason Murphy comes in and competes at right tackle, but certainly could be a damn good right guard. You're kind of sitting here at 4 or 5 offensive linemen you feel really good about, and then some young offensive linemen supplying some depth. That it's hard to address the offensive line in the transfer portal. We knew it would be difficult for Auburn. They did a really nice job doing so. You look at the defensive side of the football. If there was one position I'd like to see Auburn probably continue to go out and try to address, it's, maybe the inside of the defensive line and then off-ball linebacker. And off-ball linebacker, it's not that you don't have confidence in guys like DeMarcus Riddick heading into the 2025 season. It's a little bit more of, hey, can we find a little bit more experience in that room? So it's a talented linebacker room for Auburn, but it's a young one. And you lose guys like Keys and Eugene Asante, the guys that played a lot of football for Auburn over the last couple of years. Raiden Salter coming in at cornerback. The secondary, to me, is going to be extremely good. I think you got a lot of young cats on the defensive line who might take that next step, along with some freshmen that are coming in. There's not a lot of holes within this Auburn roster. I think they did, and this is kind of what you look for when you're looking at teams that can compete at the highest level, is it's kind of a prerequisite to have like the star talent, which I think Auburn does, not only in terms of the quarterback spot, but guys like Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons. I think Jeremiah Cobb is going to be a dude at the running back spot. They have that all SEC NFL caliber guy, but they also did a really good job making sure this roster, this depth chart, did not have many holes. And the holes that were probably present going into 2025, like on the offensive line, I think Auburn did a really nice job addressing. And so I look at it and say it's hard to get too picky about what Auburn was able to do in the transfer portal. I'm going to give them a minus overall. I think the roster got better, plain and simple. And that's kind of the goal when you're talking about transfer portal classes. We'll sign it out there. We'll continue to break down the commitments as they come in. Outside of off-ball linebacker, you're feeling pretty good. Maybe on the defensive line as well. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.